So actually, we as a consumer, we don't
Are you
really
aware
know
of the
that.
average per unit?
All of you are kings and queens in your own home with your own throne that you can sit up and decide and let the business continue to woo you.
Welcome to another episode of Consumer Voice, the platform of the Consumer Protection Council that tells you all about your rights as a consumer and what to do whenever you feel they have been breached. Today, our main discussion is on the enforcement powers of the Consumer Protection Council, with a detailed look at the ongoing investigation of the Council on Multichoice Limited, the owners of DStv. As many of you viewers might have seen and read in the media, the investigation, which started many months ago, was precipitated by numerous consumer complaints against DStv. Of course, the investigation reached a climax last week when CPC stormed the head office of Multichoice in Lagos due to non-compliance by Multichoice for some fundamental requests by CPC. Today's episode will look at the various components of the investigation, including a background fact and analysis of the investigation, the enforcement powers of the CPC, and how and why consumers' rights should always be preserved by producers and service providers in Nigeria. Also in this episode, there'll be our usual segment, CPC Updates, which promises to be very interesting and educating, social media feedback, and Consumer of the Week. First, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, my colleague, Emme Ojugo, will take you through the discussion segment. Don't go away.
As you've just heard, today we are discussing the enforcement powers of CPC, and we would be discussing the ongoing investigation of Multichoice DStv. With me in the studio are Barrister Emmanuel Ataguba, Director Legal Services, CPC. You're welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And Mrs. Leke Ogundikpe, Director Surveillance and Enforcement here in the CPC. You're welcome, madam.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Let me start with you, Mrs. Ogundikpe. I want you to give us a historical background of the ongoing investigations of DStv. But before we do that, let's take a look at some of the clips of various consumer complaints against DStv. Let's take a look.
It's an issue of breach of contract and I believe false advertisement. Actually, my subscription ended and I applied to renew it. And after the payment, due to the network problem our teachers had, I couldn't have signals for 3 days. After the third day, I started receiving signals. And they are insisting that the 3 days is inclusive of my payment. But I'm demanding that they should exclude the 3 days and add another 3 days for me. And that is the problem I have with them.
With DStv was poor signal, so I had to call their line for a while. It was ringing and nobody picked. And actually it was music that was playing and there was no response till the phone went off. So.
Well, Mrs. Ogundikpe, having watched these clips, what do you have to say about the ongoing investigations?
Let me first of all say that an investigation can start, let me say, two primary ways. One, it could be based on a complaint. It doesn't even have to be 2 complaints. It could be 1 complaint.
Okay.
And it could also be based on the surveillance of the council itself, if it observes that maybe consumer abuses are occurring in a particular sector or place. Then you can start an investigation. And of course, you want to find out more about that service provider or the product provider and see how you can actually get broad-based redress for your consumers. And that really is the history of investigations. In this particular case, there's really no difference.
Okay.
We had several complaints about DStv, you know, and let me give just a couple of examples. You have complaints that maybe somebody pays on a Friday, he doesn't get a signal until Monday, he's lost it 3 days.
Of course.
You also have situations where in the middle of the subscription, maybe it goes off, maybe for a couple of days, or it could be even as little as a couple of hours, but there's absolutely no compensation for the consumer. We also had complaints when they were doing the recent decoder swap. Some of the consumers said they were actually charged for the swapping of the decoders, and it was meant to be a free swap. So it ranged from let me say A to Z.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Tagoba, let me bring you in here. Please, can you tell us about the investigation? How is it conducted and what's the duration? Does it have a specific timeline?
Okay. Like you just heard, the investigation is about alleged violations of consumer rights in the delivery of satellite television broadcast services by Multichoice. We all know their flagship product, DStv. The investigation is conducted by a panel, an administrative panel of the Consumer Protection Council, which consists of the relevant staff of the council. We have legal consultants. Yeah. This investigation commenced in July. I think it was on the 31st day of July 2015. And it was supposed to run till the end of September. Okay. But here we are in October at the moment. We have requested from DStv a lot of information. And we would have finished this investigation by now if DStv or Multichoice, sorry, was forthcoming in handing over the information that we requested.
What is their reason for not complying?
Okay, let me put it like this. There were a long list of documents, about 11 documents. So we started with the first one. When we asked them to produce the first one, they said they didn't think it was reasonable for them to bring that document to the council. That was one reason they gave. They also said that it was a trade secret or business sensitive information, you know. And we took a lot of pains to explain to them that, look, the Consumer Protection Council is not a business entity and is not in the business of satellite TV broadcast, and so is not a competitor. The Consumer Protection Council would like to act on behalf of consumers, and which was why it was requesting all of that information. Okay,
what information were you looking for, to be specific?
It wouldn't be very correct for me now to give you a list of those documents at this point, but I can give you examples of the kind of documents and why we are looking for those kind of documents. I'll give you a simple example. You would, if you're carrying out an investigation of a service provider like this, who is also in the business of creating an interface with consumers whereby consumers can call in and make inquiries, call in and make complaints. Now, you want to know how many consumers do they have? How many consumers do they have and where? where are they located, so that you will be able to